Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So the other day, I was on Google, and I typed in, how do I find my life purpose? And as you can imagine, I got about 190 million results. And I thought to myself, dear God, I'm not going to go through all of this. So I started checking the first page and reading a few articles. And while there was some really great content in there, like, pursue your bliss, follow your joy, there was one key component that was missing. How do you actually pursue it? How do you actually commit to it? And it's pain. I know it might sound a little bit weird, but pain is going to be your motivating force. It's what's going to drive you forward. When I was a teenager, I went through some pretty hard times. I was bullied, I was threatened, I was harassed. And ultimately, I got to a place in my life where I just didn't feel like I could cope anymore. And I started considering suicide. I remember the night that I hit my breaking point. I was in my room. I was crying. I'd been through a particularly hard day. And I was just thinking to myself about the next day and having to face it and having to deal with all of that stuff that had been perpetuating in my life, and as you can imagine, was my own creation, which I've now realized. And I just thought, I can't do it anymore. I just can't take it. And so I started thinking about how I could end it. And in that moment, as I was truly considering it, I was truly at that breaking point, all of a sudden everything changed. A stillness came over me. And I felt this love radiating out of every cell of my being. And it was as if my future flashed before my eyes. I saw all the people in the world whose lives would be impacted by me taking my own. And I realized that I had to stay. But at the same time, I didn't know how. I didn't know how to get through the next day. And so I thought, okay, well, what's the one thing that actually brings me joy? What's the one thing that lights me up? And for me, it was art. It was photography. It was painting. It was poetry. And so I made a commitment that every single day, particularly on the hardest days, I would do that. I would take at least 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes turned into 30 minutes, and that 30 minutes turned to an hour, and before I knew it, I was an entrepreneur. I was taking photos of people for a living, and I was being a mentor to other people who wanted to become entrepreneurs and discover what made them unique and special. And I owe all of that to that pain being that motivating factor, that driving force. And yes, that's my dream life. And doing things like co-hosting retreats in Mexico and being able to live a freedom-based lifestyle, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to strive for. But you don't need to do that in order to have a big impact on people's lives. Just this past year, I was going through a particularly tough time in my life, and I went to go spend some time with my sister. Her and I have always been kind of black and white. We haven't always seen eye to eye. But in that moment, I just felt this compelling force to go speak to her. And she gave me some really great advice. But beyond that, what impacted me more than anything was she started sharing with me about her passion, about her joy. My sister's an elementary school teacher, and she gets to work with amazing children. And right now she's a sub, so she's bouncing around to all these different schools. And she actually gets to spend a lot of time with children who, aren't in the greatest places in their lives and don't have a lot of support. And she started sharing with me what it's like to watch a kid who really gets something for themselves. Not because someone told them the answer or someone showed them the way, but they figured it out for themselves. And that radiating confidence that just starts to exude from every pore, and they just light up. And as my sister was telling me about this, she lit up. And I could feel it pouring out of her purpose, her passion, radiating onto me. And in that moment, I suddenly remembered myself, and I remembered why I was here, and I remembered why I was alive. And I realized something in that moment, something that I want all of you to get today. That you don't need to be a New York Times best-selling author. You don't need to be the next Oprah, and you definitely don't need to be interviewed by Ellen. Although if that's something that you want to do, I totally applaud you for that. But what you do need to do is pursue your bliss, pursue your joy, and then share it with people. Because it's in the sharing it with other people that makes it real and is what's going to be the biggest impact for them. Now you might be wondering, well, how do I do this? How do I actually pursue what I want to do when I've got a job and I've got responsibilities and I've got all this stuff going on in my life? Well, that's where I want to bring it back to the point of pain. So here's the thing. The pain of actually pursuing your bliss needs to be less than the pain that it would be not doing it. So let me spell that out for you a little bit more easily. Let's say you're practicing yoga, which I'm sure most of you do here, and you come home from work one day, and you're just totally exhausted. You're sitting on the couch, and you know you've got that class at 7 p.m. that you've committed to going to. And you're thinking, okay, I can either sit here on the couch, and I can veg out and relax and maybe go to bed early, or I can go to that class. And I can keep that commitment that I've made not only to myself, but to all the people in my life. And you start thinking about, how is my life impacted by practicing yoga? Well, I feel more alive, I feel at ease, I feel at peace. And you start seeing that the thing weighs out more. The pain of not going is more than the pain it would take to go. So when you are having a struggle to make a change in your life, or keep a commitment, or pursue your bliss, I want you to just consider this. What's worse, pursuing it or not pursuing it? And I bet that not pursuing it is much, much worse and much, much more painful. And that's going to be the key thing that's going to drive you forward. So, my final point is, if you want to have an impact on the world, just pursue your bliss, know your pain, befriend it, and then that's what's going to make the change. Share it with people. Share your love. Namaste.